Hello and welcome back. In this part of the chapter, we'll be discussing about the third natural resource that is there listed in the title of this chapter, that is water. We'll be learning about water as the vital natural resource and the different steps that we can take in order to conserve water. Now we know that water is so important in our day-to-day lives, right? Water is used for drinking, it's used for bathing, it's used in agricultural industries, it is used in industrial purposes, all right, and it's also used as it's a very vital ingredient that helps in our basic survival. All of us, we cannot imagine our lives without water. Not just we humans, but also plants, but also different creatures that are dependent on water. And moreover, that even though 75% of the earth is covered with water, there is still scarcity for drinking water. There is still scarcity for fresh water, right? So in this part of the chapter, we will be discussing about all of these points, and we'll be going through the important measures that we can take in order to conserve water. So like I told you, 75% of the earth's surface is covered with water, and mostly in this 75%, two-thirds of the earth is covered with saline water, that is sea water. Water that is not fit for drinking purpose, water that we cannot use for our day-to-day activities, right? Be it in the agricultural region or be it in our household region. Okay, so we are dependent on only fresh water, and you'll be surprised to know that only 2.7% of fresh water is available, out of which 70% of the water is not accessible to us, because this 70% of water is stored or it's basically it exists in the form of glacier in the mountain regions. It exists in the form of ice, all right, and what we get is only 1%. 1% of Earth's fresh water is only available to us for our use. So, from this 1% water, all of us have to survive. Our lives are dependent on this 1% of water. And the most devastating fact is that this freshwater resource is also getting polluted, is also getting contaminated, so that whatever water is there for our use is very scarce, and there is, a very it's a very urgent need. It's a very urgent need in many parts of the world. All right, the basic natural phenomenon that conserves water, or why we call water as a natural renewable resource, is because this natural phenomenon known as water cycle, it ensures that this 1% of fresh water that I was talking about, it is there in a continuous circulation. Okay, for example, plants, they of course, plants, they also transpire, means they give out certain water vapor. Human beings, we also give out certain water vapor while we breathe out. And also there is a certain level, a certain extent of evaporation that is also going on from the surface of water bodies. So all of these water vapor, they are going up. Okay, they are helping in the formation of clouds, and when finally all of the water vapor, they're getting condensed, and that condensation is fully saturated, then that condensation further results in precipitation, and then we again get that gaseous form of water into the liquid form, that is again used to maintain this cycle. So because of this natural cycle, this water cycle, we can say that water is a renewable resource, because its total volume, even though it is constant, it is in a constant circulation. Okay, and we cannot say that there is a scarcity of water just like that. There is a scarcity of water largely because of what we human beings are doing, by how we are contaminating, by how we are polluting water, and mostly because of the rise in population and because of the increase in the demand of water. Okay, this is a list that states what how many liters of water one person requires. For drinking, 3 liters; for cooking, 4; for bathing, 20; for flushing, 40; for washing clothes, 40; washing utensils, 20; for gardening or for other miscellaneous purposes, 23. Roughly, if you calculate all of the uses that one person requires, one person needs 150 liters of water a day. Okay, per day, for survival, for basic survival. Okay, and of course 150 liters is a lot. So earth is inhabited by so many human beings, right? So you can only imagine how much water is required for all of the population. All right, and moreover, Moreover, many people, they are dying because of lack of water, or because of whatever water they are getting is, it's contaminated, it's polluted, they cannot possibly drink that. So we have to always think of some methods in order to bring down this amount. So we can, what we can do is we can reuse certain water that we just waste away. Like I was explaining you in the first chapter, while you're brushing your teeth, or while you have done your part, you don't need the tap water immediately. You may need it for the other round of washing, or for the other round of cleaning certain utensils. Then you may, instead of letting the water drain away, letting the tap water drain away, you may just close the tap water, turn the handle towards the other side, close it, so that the use of water is checked, no water is getting wasted. All right, so these are the methods that we can take. We have to be vigilant, like I had told you in the first chapter. We have to be conscious about the quantity of water that we are using. If we can analyze that for cooking, I may not need four, rather just three or even two, then that is fine. Okay, for bathing, if we think about the water that is water that comes from the shower, the overhead shower, if you can use a bucket system rather than that bathing just directly from the shower, then so many liters of water could be prevented from being wasted away. Because when you're bathing with a bucket and a tumbler, you're only using certain quantity that can get adjusted into that, fit into that particular tumbler. All right, so all of these are areas whether where we can just pause for a second, reflect that whether we can contain or limit the use of water or not. Okay, then there is a very scarcity of water, and the reasons, they are overpopulation, seasonal activity, contamination. These are the list. This is the list that basically tells you about what are the problems that are there. Okay, rising population. Rising population means more people need more water. All right, and moreover, for industrial purposes, because there is a rising population, so there are rapidly growing industries. Water is used in industries. All right, and the amount of water, the dirty water that comes out of a household, that comes out of these industries, they are not being properly you know they're not being properly treated, means they're not being getting rid of the toxic pollutants that are there in the water. Rather, this dirty water, this is just being made to flow into the water bodies. This is again contaminating, and this is again making sure that whatever fresh water we had in our rivers, we had in our fresh sources of water body, they are also getting polluted. Okay, so this is also in fact adding to the problems of water availability, right? Contamination, unequal access among groups. So people who are privileged, people who can access water from a municipal corporation, fresh water, clean water, healthy water, refined or treated water. But there are some people who are poor, who do not have this access. They have to either drink that dirty contaminated water, or rather they have to just starve and die because of lack of water. All right, so these are some of the common problems of water availability. And there is a city in Saurashtra known as Amreli that has such a scarcity of water that the people in this city, they have to buy water from their nearby areas. Nearby districts is one of the areas is talukas, and they have to purchase water. So imagine purchasing. So of course, when you go out and when you're not carrying your own water bottle to drink, you do purchase water. But imagine purchasing water for cooking, imagine purchasing water for bathing, for whatever other domestic purposes that you may need water for. Okay, so there is such a scarcity of water that we have to think, we have to ponder over our usage. All right, therefore, there are certain ways that we should and we must adopt in order to conserve water. Firstly, is that we have to treat the industrial effluents that are coming out of the industries before directly releasing them into the water bodies, because these pollutants, they are not just contaminating the water source, but they are also hampering with the aquatic life. Imagine all those aquatic plants and aquatic animals that depend on water, and when they have to when they have to deal with contaminated water, because those plants, those animals, they absorb oxygen from the water, Now, because that water is getting contaminated, so the kind of particles that they are absorbing from that water, they are also absorbing toxins along with it, pollutants along with it. So we have to ensure that industrial effluents, or not just industrial effluents, but also domestic water, water that is being released from a domestic household, they're also getting treated in the designated treatment plants before they are being released into the water bodies. Then it should be again defecation, open defecation into villages, nearby villages area, that should be avoided. Laboratory should be built for each and every one. Okay, then afforestation to slow surface runoff and replenish underground water. We have already seen that what deforestation can cause to the topmost layer of the soil, but deforestation also results in the loss of water, because that water is then getting all drained away. That water that you could have harvested, rainwater harvesting, that you could have stored for your use, that is now getting just drained away. Afforestation to slow runoff, so that the speed of the water is getting checked. That ultimately the speed of the water can be slowed down to such an extent that you can possibly harvest that amount of water. Then lining irrigation canals properly, so that there is no seepage of water into underground. All right. Then drip or trickle irrigation in dry regions. There is something known as sprinkler system, and this sprinkler system, it's a modern method, and it helps you know it helps vegetation in the dry regions to get water in a very equivalent amount. All right. So rather than standing there and ensuring that every plant or every vegetation, every stretch of vegetation is getting water time to time, you can just install a sprinkler system, drip or trickle irrigation, where you can ensure that periodically this system is ensuring that water is getting supplied to all those dry areas. All right, so these are the methods that we can adopt in order to conserve water resources. So in this part of the chapter, we learned about how vital is this resource of water to us, and why should we conserve water, and moreover what are the steps that we can take in order to conserve water. In the next part of the chapter, I'll be meeting you to discuss the last resource that we have to study in this chapter. Hi and welcome back. This is the last part of the chapter that we'll be studying about. The last resource that we'll be discussing is natural vegetation and wildlife. So till now, whatever we have discussed, land, soil, water, the availability of all of these resources, they are also dependent, or basically they also determine the kind of vegetation, plant growth, or the kind of animal that will be inhabiting in a particular area. So in this part, we'll be studying about this resource. So we know that from plants we get so many important materials. We get wood, we get paper, we get turpentine oil, we get important medications. All right, we are dependent on insects, wildlife for pollen, for honey. We get hides, we get meat, we get eggs. We get so many important materials, not just from plants but also from animals. Even a single microorganism is important to us. All of these, they are working together, they are working together, and we humans are also a part of this system. All of us, we are interdependent. There are certain activities that humans are also making possible for vegetation and for wildlife, and of course vegetation and wildlife are doing more than enough for our survival, right? They're providing us with so many resources. Okay, they are such a they're such a treasure for us. All right, so it is very important that we study about them. It's very important that we understand that how imperative it is in order to conserve them, in order to maintain this interdependent balance that we all are a part of, right? So in this part of the chapter, we'll be learning about this system, the land system that I discussed with you in the first part of the chapter, that is the lithosphere. All right, then the water system. Okay, all the water cycle and the other interdependencies of water related to water is the world of hydrosphere. All right, then air is also a very vital natural resource, and the interdependency, or you can say the cycle that is going on with air, that is that it envelops, that basically and captures us as well. Okay, that is atmosphere. I don't have space here. Yeah, atmosphere. Okay, so the integration, or rather you can say the interdependency of atmosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere. I'm drawing this cycle sort of system, but this is actually just to indicate that there is an interdependency going on, and this interdependency is nothing but biosphere. So basically the meeting point of atmosphere, the meeting point of lithosphere and hydrosphere is where you get the biosphere, where everybody, be it you, be it me, be it vegetation, means trees, plants, forests, be it microorganisms, be it aquatic plants, be it terrestrial animals, we all are rather interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival. And this interdependency is a life supporting system which we know, which we call as the ecosystem. Okay, so in this part of the chapter, we will be studying that why is it important to conserve natural vegetation, why is it important to conserve wildlife, and why is it therefore important to learn and conserve and help our ecosystem maintain that ecological balance. Okay, distribution of natural vegetation, or rather distribution of you can say forests or trees, or not just forests or trees but rather shrubs, grasses, herbs. It depends on the climate of that particular area. So in the tropical area where you have huge amounts of rainfall, you have very tall trees growing over there. Okay, and the kind of forest that you call there is known as the tropical forest. So you have tall trees. Okay, you have heavy rainfall. All right, and the forest there in the Amazon rainforest, for example, you may have seen that they are so dense. The forest, they are so dense that there is a canopy, okay, or a forming of you can say an uppermost layer rather of trees, of tree branches, not trees. Okay, and there are very little areas in between those branches where sunlight has to pass through. All right, so these dense forest areas, they are covered by tall trees, and they inhabit those areas where you have heavy rainfall. Then grasslands are those areas where you have trees, where you have forests, but these are small and stunted in their height. They are not tall. Okay, that you had in the tropical areas. So they are small, stunted trees. Okay, and the rainfall there is moderate rainfall. So of course, the kind of wildlife that you'll be encountering in these areas would also be different, because different animals have different needs for their survival. Some may need heavy rainfall, some may need low rainfall, some may need moderate rainfall, some may need different kind of fruits and trees, and depending upon these areas, they are distributed equally and evenly. Okay, then scrubs, or rather thorny bushes. Okay, or cactus. Okay, they are present in dry area or desert areas that are arid. Okay, that have low amount of rainfall, and often because they have low rainfall, so there is you can say a natural need to conserve whatever amount of water one is having. So naturally these thorny bushes or these scrubs or this cactus, they are enveloped, not enveloped, they are coated with the waxy substance. Okay, that prevents the over transpiration, or sometimes it prolongs the transpiration process. And instead of leaves, cactus have thorns, so that the surface area of that transpiration is also getting reduced. Same goes to thorny bushes, and scrubs are also there. They are very small in size, so that again the water content could be conserved. Then in the cold areas where you have again low rainfall, there you have the tundra region, where mostly the kind of vegetation that you have, they are composed of mosses and lichens. Okay, so these are the different you can say distribution of natural vegetation, where it is depending upon the temperature and on the amount of rainfall. Okay, now conservation of wildlife and natural vegetation. We know that we need natural vegetation for so many purposes, and we need wildlife for so many purposes. Now there is definitely an overexploitation going on. That is why there is a very urgent need internationally to conserve, because there is a very overexploitation of forest reserves. There is deforestation going on. Okay, and wildlife, they are very, very vulnerable because of poaching, because animals, they are being hunted for their respective valuable source. So like elephants, they are being poached down or hunted for their ivory husks. Okay, then lions, tigers for their hides, for their meat. Okay, um there are so many examples. There are peacocks, there are ostriches. Okay, then there is the great Indian bustard, which is not prohibited to be hunted in India. Okay, so all of these animals, they are being hunted for their meat, for their hides, for their important valuable resources. That and they're not cheap, means they are so, you can say, valuable, they are so precious, that the government has now also banned on the hunting or poaching of some of these animals. And because they have now become exotic animals, those precious resources are now lesser and lesser in the market. So illegal hunters, illegal poachers, they sell them in very huge prices. Okay, again, luring people into, luring people into participate into different kind of illegal activities. So because of these activities, there is an urgent need to conserve wildlife, to conserve national vegetation, and there are methods that the government has adopted in order to do so. There are national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. So all of these, you can say, areas, they are instituted, they are incorporated, or they are rather built by the government, and they ensure that within the boundaries of these sanctuaries or these reserves or these parks, whatever wildlife are there, they will uh, they will exist, they will live as if in their natural region. Okay, there will be no cages around them like you have in a zoo. Okay, they will be living like they were living in a natural forest area. Okay, then these exotic species of wildlife and exotic species of forests or trees are as well, that are getting constantly chopped down due to deforestation. They are getting planted so that endangered species, they are getting preserved from extinction. All right, so they are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. For example, here you can see a tiger in Ranthambore National Park. Then there are other methods that have been taken. There are conservation of creeks, lakes, and wetlands. Then there are awareness programs such as One Mahotsav. So this is a government initiated, you can say, festival, rather program or festival that is there, so that normal people like you and I, we are getting we are getting enveloped, or rather we are getting motivated into this, immersing ourselves into this, maintaining this ecological balance. That people like us, we are also getting motivated in order to plant trees, or rather planting trees. So this is basically, you can say, as a awareness call, awareness program, social program, so that the planting of trees could be made possible in larger and larger numbers and larger quantities. Then you have certain laws against trade and killing of birds. In India itself, the great Indian bustard, okay, the great Indian bustard and peacocks and certain species of tigers and lions, they are prohibited to be poached, to be killed. Okay, so there are certain laws in certain respective countries, certain respective areas, and also not just on animals and birds, but also on trees. On certain stretches of roads, you may encounter that trees towards the bottom side, they are painted white and red. It basically is a sign that that tree is now a reserved as government property. You are not supposed to cut down that tree. So endangered species could also, species of trees could also be painted by those signs. That is an you can say, an international indication that one is not supposed to do any harm to this particular tree. Then CITES is an international agreement, and the full form is Convention Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Okay. So this is an international agreement. This agreement is made so that certain amount of certain species of plants and certain species of animals, birds, etc., they are prohibited to be hunted down, prohibited to be chopped down. Okay, so this convention on international trade in endangered species of wildlife, flora and fauna, they have worked in order to conserve 5,000 species of animals, all right, and more than 28,000 species of plants. All right. So this is an international agreement between countries, between different government, different countries. That see, these are the different species of animals that are getting endangered, that are getting extinct, and these are the different species of animal plants that are getting also endangered or extinct. And therefore, we should impose a ban on chopping down of these trees, on the hunting of these animals, so that and we can also and then we can also ensure that these respective species are getting incorporated into national parks, into wildlife sanctuaries, or into biosphere reserves where the continuity is being maintained. So these are the different measures that one can adopt, okay, when learning about conservation of wildlife and natural vegetation. And now we'll be going through some questions and we'll be coming towards the end of this chapter. What are the two main climatic factors responsible for soil formation? The two main important climatic factors, they are temperature and rainfall. Because if you may remember, when I was explaining you the formation of soil, I was telling you that rocks have certain cracks, and because of the increase in temperature, when water goes through, and because of the decrease in temperature, the water may contract, water may start freezing, the cracks may contract, and because of the contraction and expansion, the cracks can become wider, ultimately causing the rock to break down. So because of increase and decrease in temperature, and because of rainfall, because the rainfall ensures that enough pressure is being exerted onto the rocks, and on top of that, water is also seeping into the cracks or the respective rocks. So these are the two important or main climatic factors that are responsible for soil formation. Write any two reasons for land degradation today. So there are so many reasons for land degradation, right? One is of course deforestation, cutting down of trees in order to build, in order to be basically for urbanization. All right. Then what are the other reasons that you can think of? Use of excessive chemicals, right? So one is definitely deforestation, because trees are being chopped down to build trees. I'm sorry, to build buildings, to build different infrastructures, urban complexes, basically urbanization, right? Then the next could be excessive use of chemicals in the form of pesticides, in the form of fertilizers, etc. All right, because these are again contaminating the land, contaminating the nutrient content of the particular soil. Then again, because they seep down, so they're also tampering with the underground water. So you see so many contamination going on due to one use of one excessive thing. All right. So these are the important reasons that are responsible for land degradation. Why is land considered an important resource? Land is considered an important resource. The very obvious question, because um, for we need land. We need land for a housing purpose. We need land for building different infrastructure. Okay, and for survival, right? Because housing infrastructure, they would not have been going on had we not discovered farming. All right. So agriculture, farming, for housing, for infrastructure, but then comes your industries and other important urban complexes. All right. So we need land uh, for all these reasons, and that is why land is considered an important resource. Name any two steps that government has taken to conserve plants and animals. So one step is that the government has imposed bans on poaching of animals. So there are certain laws like sites, okay, that government has imposed certain laws impose certain bans on the hunting of certain species of animals or cutting down of certain species of plants. And moreover, they are being endangered species. They are being kept in national parks or biological reserves. Okay, national parks, sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. The second step could be that government has taken the initiative to conduct a program known as One Mahotsav. That is basically a social awareness program, so that people like you and I can get motivated to think about the planet, to conserve our forest resource, okay, and to get along with the drive and plant more trees. So social awareness programs like One Mahotsav suggest 3 ways to conserve water. So water is a very important resource, and we had gone through certain steps that we should take in order to conserve water. The first could be rainfall, or not rainfall, sorry, rainwater harvesting. Okay, because the excessive rainwater that is precipitating down, we can harvest them by building certain tanks, where those where the rainwater could be stored. Then slowing down, definitely by afforestation, we can slow down the flow of water that is getting wasted away, and we can then again employ certain measures to harvest that water. So afforestation, okay. Then lining the irrigation canal. Wait. Lining of irrigation canal, because irrigation canal, when we line them, we are ensuring that the extra water is not getting seeped down into the soil. Rather, it is getting into that proper area, getting into that into that proper farm area, amongst those proper rows of crops that are supposed to be irrigated. So these are the different methods that we can take to conserve water. And with this question, we come to the end of this chapter, where we have discussed so many natural resources, right? We have discussed land, we have discussed soil, we have discussed water, and we have also discussed about vegetation and wildlife, our biosphere, our ecological system. Okay, and we have not only gone through the formation of all these formation, or rather you can say existence of all these different resources in our earth, but also we have gone through different measures that we can take in order to conserve them, in order to protect them from getting overexploited. Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of this chapter, and in the next part of the chapter, I'll be discussing with you some points, so as to give you a recapitulation of the chapter, so as to give you a quick revision. Hello and welcome back, and thank you for joining me here. In this part, I'll be giving you a quick revision of the important points that we had to learn in this chapter, where we have discussed about our natural resources. First natural resource that we have discussed about, that is land, and we know how much land is important to us for our housing, for agriculture, for industrial purposes, and it is also furthermore important to conserve this land resource, because we are only using 30% of the land resource for our use, and because of increase in population, there is an overexploitation of land. So we have to conserve land, and we can do it by steps like afforestation, by checking on overgrazing, by ensuring that cattle are grazing on different pieces of grazing land, farmlands, and regulated use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. The second important natural resource that we had learned about was soil. So soil is also very important for us. The kind of fertility of the soil that one particular area has, it determines what kind of trees that area would be producing, then what kind of animals would be inhabiting, and what kind of humans would be inhabiting again. Okay, depending whether that soil is being formulated on a mountain area, or in a desert area, or in a fertile area, right? So we have to conserve soil from getting eroded. You have to basically preserve the topmost fertile layer of the soil by how we can do it: by terrace farming, by mulching, by contour plowing, by intercropping, rock dams, and contour barriers. So different steps: by cutting along the natural contours of the forests, or rather by by on cutting huge steps on hill slopes, so that the check of so that the speed of the water can be checked, rainwater or whatever water that is passing through that area could be checked, so that the speed of the wind, intensity of the wind could be checked by contour barriers. Okay, intercropping, so that the nutrient capacity of that soil is maintained. All right, by building rock dams again, so that the flow of water could be checked, and by mulching, so that the excessive moisture that the soil has is not being exposed or evaporated, but rather it is being preserved by pouring a layer of straw or hay. Then the next natural resource that we had learned about was water, and it's also again very important to conserve water, because water is used for bathing, drinking, irrigation purposes in industries. We cannot imagine our lives without water. Moreover, the fresh percentage of fresh water resource is only 1%. So it is more imperative to conserve water. So we have to check on the intensity, on the amount of water that we are using for our day-to-day uses, because on an average, one person requires 150 liters of water. So you have to stop and think that at whatever places you can conserve water, or you can cut down your intake of water for that particular purpose, you please do it. Okay. So we can conserve water by dripping irrigation and sprinklers by the sprinkler system, using it in the dry regions, by harvesting the rainwater that is precipitating down, and by minimizing pollution. How can we minimize pollution? We can, whatever effluents and whatever toxic pollutants that are getting out of our households and getting out of the industrial, the effluents of the industries, they should be properly treated in the respective water treatment plants before being exposed out into the water bodies, so that the fresh water bodies are not getting contaminated, and also the aquatic life system is also being preserved, and that is also not being contaminated. Then most vegetation is classified as grassland, scrubs, forests, and tundra vegetation, depending upon the kind of temperature and depending upon the kind of rainfall that a particular area is receiving. So if it's receiving a lot of rainfall and tropical climate, then the tropical rainforests are present there. In desert areas, scrubs and thorny bushes. In cold areas, there's a tundra vegetation where you have mosses and lichens, and grasslands are present in temperate regions where you have moderate rainfall, and small stunted trees rather than tall trees. Okay. So, and wildlife, it is important to conserve wildlife as well as important species of plants, because plants provide us with so many important materials, and animals too, milk, meat, hides, eggs. Okay, and because they are getting very discriminately killed because of the value of their skin, or because of the value of the important medicinal value. Okay, so it is very important to conserve them, and we can do it by government has already imposed bans, and the government keeps on imposing bans on poaching of certain animals, or cutting down of certain trees that are considered to be endangered, means close to extinction. And the other important step is that the government has built national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and biological reserve, biosphere reserve, where these endangered species are they are incorporated. Okay, and they are allowed to live in their natural habitat. There are no cages surrounding them. They are free to roam in their natural habitat. So these are the kind of important measures that one needs to take, and when one is thinking of conserving wildlife and natural vegetation. So in this chapter, we have covered all these 5 to 6 important natural resources, and we have not just gone through the vitality that these resources hold in our lives, but we have also gone through that how we are exploiting them, how we are overusing them, and also the important measures that we can take to counter this over exploitation. So with this note, I bid you goodbye, and I hope you enjoyed studying this chapter with me. I'll see you another time where we'll be discussing the third chapter of geography with you. Till then, study well and take care.